Kim wants to swim with the dogs. We're all coming over for a barbecue.
Well,
We've
come
got a
on.
full house today, which I'm super excited about. I know the conversations yesterday were super productive and great. I know we're all excited for a day of show today. Happy Monday, everyone. We are excited to get the week kicked off every Monday. Today we are doing webinar number 58, day of show 2.0. If you're just joining us now for the first time, we've covered 1.0 throughout the year. Fall semester has been all about taking it to an advanced level in 2.0, and covering a broader perspective on the tour management life and the day-to-day ins and outs of being a tour manager. If you have not changed your chat settings, please change them to all panelists and attendees so we can best address your questions and answer all of that accordingly. We are super excited today. As always, I usually get things introed. I'll pass it over to MJ to introduce our panelists, and we'll get the topic started.
Great, thank you. So we have planned, budgeted, and advanced the tour in 2.0, and now we're on the road, and it's day of show. Day of show on large-scale tours is like a choreographed dance with multiple departments working together to make the show happen. And today we're going to hop right in. We have 4 amazing guests who are going to basically break down what a day of show large scale looks like and how they work together step by step. And we have Jim Digby, Mariah Kettemer, Larry Eccles, and Kit Blanchard. And I'm going to let them all introduce themselves. So starting with Jim, tell us a little bit about yourself and what you do. And
Hi, nice to be
Hello.
here. Thanks for having me. So I'm just a couple years shy of 4 decades in the business. I started out super young, and it hasn't always been in music touring. I came up through the ranks of, technician. I was an automation technician for a while, and then a stage manager and a production manager for bands as well, and for artists as wide ranging as Marilyn Manson and the Bolshoi Ballet and Genesis and Phil Collins and Hootie and the Blowfish, Blues Traveler, and most notably Linkin Park. I had Linkin Park for the better part of 16 years, and it was quite the treat. And I founded the nonprofit Event Safety Alliance in 2013, co-founded the Event Safety Alliance with a bunch of other really smart people after the stage collapsed in Indiana and needlessly killed 7 people and wounded 55 others. That's a different story for a different episode. And recently founded another nonprofit, the Showmakers, which is intended to further propel this kind of conversation, education, life and balance in the entertainment business. The fact that we cross jurisdictional roles, that if we work on live music touring, geez, you know what? We could probably work on esports, and we can work on other event productions as well. Those skills resonate across boards. That's me. Thanks for having me.
Well, thanks. Mariah, let's hear about you and what you do and where you came
I
from. And
started transitioning from a concert goer to a concert worker at CU Boulder. And I was on the event program council there on campus. And then I was a production intern at the Fox Theater. And right after school, I was lucky enough to get hired by Chuck Morris Bill Graham Presents as the office manager. And within 6 months, I was the booking assistant. And by the time I was 25, I was booking shows. So Red Rocks, Paramount, I really liked comedy. I did a lot of comedy shows, but I always wanted to tour. I never wanted to be a booker. I just got promoted up to being a booker. And when I was 28, I got the opportunity to work with Live Nation Touring because Chuck Morris Bill Graham Presents actually got absorbed by Live Nation Touring, or by Live Nation. So I was able to transfer over to Live Nation Touring, and I've been touring for the past decade with acts like Sugarland, Coldplay, Fleetwood Mac, John Mayer, New Kids on the Block, Backstreet Boys, Stevie Nicks, Demi Lovato, Fall Out Boy. There's a lot. Some worldwide tours. And I like the position a lot because it is it allows me for the big picture. When I was a booker, I always liked working the show. I didn't like sitting in the office cutting the deals. I just wanted to be on site, hands on. And this allows you to work on the budget. The settlement is one of my favorite things. If you're a settlement nerd, people here can relate to that. It all comes together once you're on the ground there. And that way, getting out of being a booker to transition to touring really allowed me to do that every day. And I like being able to liaise with a tour manager, a production manager, the local venue ops people, the local ticketing people, the local booker. And I get to be the little social butterfly that goes from camp to camp and make sure everyone has what they need. And I always describe my position as someone that allows everyone's day to be easier and everyone to make a little bit more money. And it differs slightly from a local promoter rep in the sense that a local promoter rep really works closely with like the local labor. They have a great relationship with that. They have a great relationship with the venue, and they are responsible to the region. And they're also working on so many shows, while I can focus just on one client and one camp and really know the nuances of that tour and how to make it a success for everyone all around. And you could do a show without a tour rep, and sometimes they're definitely not needed, and other times they're hugely beneficial depending on the needs of the tour. So yeah, there you go.
That's awesome. Yeah, and that's great because we hadn't really touched on your position much so far. So that's really good, really great summary of what you do. Larry, tell us about yourself.
Yeah, hey, hello. Happy to be here as well. Started in this industry back in '92 at the Walnut Creek Amphitheater.
Oh,
Quickly got promoted early within the second year, started running some venues, moved to New Jersey to open up the Camden Amphitheater in '95. Was there for a while, started touring about '99, started liking it. So left my position there. Why did I do it? But I
That's
did
funny. That's why I didn't hate it.
it. Did it, started doing some tours. Some of the tours I've done in my illustrious career till now. Did the start, actually my first road tour was the Rough Riders Cash Money Tour. With Aerosmith, did the Smoke and Groove tour, Pearl Jam, Jay-Z, Kanye West, Rage Against the Machine, all of their spinoffs, Audio Slave, Prophets of Rage. Did the Henry Would Know Bad Boy Reunion tour. That was quite a feat. Mariah Carey, Offspring, Foo Fighters, Kings of Leon, Black Keys,
Rihanna.
Snoop Dogg, Pharrell, Rihanna, and of course, Linkin Park.
and are you usually venue security? Do you focus on that, or do you do both, venue and personal? Or
It's a combination of pretty much all three. You do venue, you do personal, so a little combination. But for the most of my career, I've done pretty much venue security.
Larry is an excellent combo. Sometimes we need him that way, and he has a way of making that transition in a moment so seamless. We really come to, that's why in his signature it says legend, because he just spit all that out at you like it was nothing. But the guy really is become, for those of us who work with him regularly, he's an integral part of the team. And I just did some work where I didn't have Larry with us, and his presence was greatly missed. True story.
and last but most definitely not least, Kit.
Hi, everyone. Thanks for having me today. I've been doing shows for a little over 3 decades. I've started in around the time of high school, doing regional theater and doing shows of my own. I was a performer at one time. Moved to college. In college, I had jobs in clubs doing lighting, production there, and then again, producing some of my own works, bringing together visual artists, musicians, dancers, and, creating shows at that point in time. While in college, I started doing arena shows as local crew to be able to pay tuition, rent, that sort of thing, along with working in the clubs, just piecemealing all these different production aspects together to try and make a living, get through school. And when I got out of school, moved to Atlanta to perform. And while I was there performing, also still working backstage. And that's where I really began rigging and working, doing arena shows, local arena shows as a rigger. Atlanta, because of the Omni, was well known for its riggers in the late 80s, early 90s. And if you were good in that building, somebody would come along and take you out on the road with them as a tour rigger. And that's how I got on the road. And I started working with Fish in 1997 as one of their riggers. I moved up to being their lead rigger. Then I moved to being their stage manager. And I wound up working with them for around 12 years. And while I was working with Fish, obviously they're a seasonal touring act. And I also began doing large music festivals, the Lollapaloozas, the Outside Lands festivals, the Austin City Limits festivals, the Bonnaroos, mostly in the role of main stage production manager. And as a main stage manager. And as that main stage manager, you're basically production manager for that area, that stage. You're working with your different vendors, your lighting, your sound, your video. You're setting the timelines of when they're loading in. You're making sure that, they have their, that all your vendors have the labor that they need when they need it. And you're doing the logistics for those shows. And then I guess, 10 years ago or so, I decided that, I'd really like to, start doing my own shows as a production manager. And from different relationships that I built with artists and management, I began, actually taking bands out as a production manager. And I've been doing that for about a dozen years now. And this year, last artist I was supposed to be going on the road with was a Nickelodeon artist, and going into arenas with that artist, Jojo Siwa, as a Nickelodeon artist. And then I'm still working currently with Leon Bridges when he has things that need to be done. And there's some other artists that when they decide to go back out, they've said that they would like for me to join them. So I just like doing shows.
Don't we?
I do too.
Well, guys, I'm up first with Mr. Digby, but I want to say thank you to all four of you because I'm definitely going to nerd out on today's episode. So thanks for joining us. So, Mr. Digby, yesterday you summed up in our prep that we're striving to achieve boy, I'm tired. What we are striving to achieve in our day of show on a large scale tour. So can you set the tone for us?
Yeah, I think what we were talking about was this kind of state of nirvana, this Groundhog Day, if you will. Yeah. Well, I think most of us probably don't want it to be mundane. But we don't do mundane well. We want it to be challenging. That's why we're in the business we're in. There are powers that come along with Groundhog Day, getting it to that state. And you don't realize how empowering being in that state is, I think, until you've tackled some unknown challenges, or, a challenging artist or challenging venue, whatever the challenging circumstance might be. Imagine, if you will, trying to operate every day where there's chaos amongst the operational team. The team itself doesn't understand each other. It doesn't understand how best that machine gets oiled. And therefore, one entity is on top of another, lights are on top of sound, and rigging's on, things aren't happening in this congruous state of fluidity that is what you're striving for. Why is that important? Well, if you get to that state, you're going to be able to take on the bigger challenges that you don't know about, the unforeseen or the unknown, or sometimes the known. Like, you may know going to France and playing in a venue in France may take a lot longer on a given day. Well, if the machine is well oiled, your machine is well oiled, then the challenge of working in France is a lot less dramatic. Or you may have an artist that's challenging. I did some time with Marilyn Manson, and getting the crew to a state of peace before his arrival was an important moment in the day, because then when he came and added the challenges of the curveballs that he threw at everyone, you were better prepared to handle them. You had more freedom in your day. You had more freedom in your brain. You had more freedom in your disposition to deal with the unknown. So yesterday, what we talked about was striving for Groundhog Day, trying to get to this place where the work is intuitive and instinctive, and that each team knows how the other team is operating on any given day, and that there's a good communication across team to team, leadership to team, leadership to local influences and stakeholders on the day, so that when the curveball comes, and they'll come, you're ready to deal with just the curveball and not executing the show. Did I get close to it, 5-1?
I believe you did.
Totally yesterday, because like I said yesterday, we strive for Groundhog Day. We want it to be as low key and boring on the regular as possible. The hallways are quiet. People are doing their thing. It's ridiculously boring for a high intensity, quick moving arena show. That way, when it goes sideways and the unexpected happens, it's not happening in a dither, and we can catch that fly ball and toss it to whatever team member it has to go to with sanity, and nobody's hysterical. It's all just moving right along. We love that. That's what we love.
And the way you get there is by setting and managing expectations, right? That's when you arrive in the morning and you come off the bus and the teams split off and start to survey the land on that day. While they're surveying the land, they're painting the picture for the local operatives of what it's going to feel like, where the stress moments are during the day. We care about you. We'd like you to care about us. You lay this groundwork for collaboration and looking out for each other from a safety standpoint. And doing that in the advance on the run up to the arrival. And then when you get off the bus, remember, first impressions are everything. And if you come off that bus and the team is in this Zen state and the team is ready to set a good first impression, then it's very difficult for a difficult venue or a difficult artist or a difficult promoter or a difficult, whatever the outside influence might be, it's very difficult for them to puncture your armor and make your day troublesome.
That's a great point. And it sets us really up for what we're going to talk about today. The day of show, the difference between what we are terming 101 and 201, the step up there can happen without you even knowing it. Artists' career trajectories can explode out of nowhere, going from playing clubs to headlining arenas within a year oftentimes. And nobody is going to hold your hand through that process. If you're the tour manager, you're expected to level up with the artist. So, for example, let's say you're on a theater tour, you roll through a well-oiled, functioning theater that has 25, 30 shows that month, and you've advanced nothing but your times. I would not advise that, but if you're a one bus trailer tour and you roll in there with a desk package and some floor package, chances are you're going to be fine. That is not the case in an arena. You absolutely, the tour, the production, the crew, everything becomes exponentially more interconnected, complex, and time crucial to the minute. So once you'll lose 30 minutes on the front end because maybe your load-in plan got thrown off. That becomes a problem later in the day. So it's really crucial what we're talking about today, to acknowledge the step up between clubs and theaters and arenas, sheds, and ultimately stadiums. So with that in mind, and we have already done 2 episodes on advancing, I think it's important that we just touch on that quickly here, in reference to how it sets us up for a day of show. So Kit, if you wouldn't mind, take us through what your advance process is for, let's say, an arena show, and what you're sending out in advance, what information you're passing along to your team as well.
So in my advance, I generally like to start the advance, between 2 weeks and a month out, so that everybody has the information. If there's any red flags that come up, we can address them in a timely manner. The other reason for going for, that month out to start the advance is that, on a bigger, longer tour, you're going to have a larger tour book that you've got to populate that tour book with the information. The other things that have to be something that happens way before all that are, some seat kills that can happen months before, so that the show can actually go on sale. But when I basically get down to the nitty gritty, it's hopefully about a month out of those events. And when I'm advancing with the arenas, one of the best places to start with is, the times that you're coming in there, the times that the show is, and figuring out when that curfew is and how hard that curfew is. The next thing that after we've got times that I like to go over is going over manpower, labor, different areas where you're going to need stagehands, if you need wardrobe, if you need a piano tuner, and working with those times as well. A lot of times I'll advance the runners and then I'll turn that over to the production coordinator, and then he or she can hone that in a little tighter at that point in time. So you've got times, you've got labor. Another thing that's going to come into play is vehicles, and letting the venue know how many vehicles that you have coming in, seeing what the idiosyncrasies of their building are, how many trucks you can put in the docks. Once the trucks are done at the docks, where they go. If you're in a large urban center, a lot of the times the trucks can't stay at the venue. Then you've got to get the trucks over to a parking area. McCormick Place in Chicago is one that we use. And when you're looking at that parking, whether it's at the venue, how those trucks are getting in, then you're also these days looking at how long your drivers have been driving for. Because in the past couple of years, in the United States, the driving times have been legislated, and now drivers basically have cards, just like they've had in Europe for decades, it feels like. But that has just happened in the US recently, and you have to be aware of that so that your drivers aren't going over that time, because then they get fined, or then they can't drive when it's time for loadout. It's an interesting dance to play when you're just thinking, oh, I just want to park some buses and trucks up. I just want to park buses and trucks. And then when you're advancing that, you're also thinking about, hey, where do I want, my artist? Where are they going to be parking? So it's the easiest for them. So when they arrive, all they have to do is just get off the bus, go into the venue, and there's no fooling around there. So we've gone through labor, times, parking. Next thing you start working on is production, generally for me, and that's, you know, the size of the space, whether if I'm not bringing my own stage in, whether their stage rolls or it doesn't, how that stage integrates with the seating arrangement and with the shape of the venue, and then getting that information over to my head rigger so that they can look at that and make sure that our show will integrate rigging wise with where we want to put the stage, with where the seats have been sold, that all of that comes together in a fluid process. And if there are any red flags, we can address that so that there can be some relocated seating sections, so that we can work within the situation that we have. You're also looking at sight lines at that point in time when you're deciding where that downstage edge is, and then you're also getting the information to the venue about where you want your front of house located, and if it's changed since the show was sold and put on sale. It's like maybe you got a video system that you weren't expecting to have originally, and your front of house grew another 10 by 20 feet. It's, does this work within the seating that has been sold there already? Moving along.
A real load of information here that you are transmitting to each venue. And you shared us your one sheet that you used for this yesterday. MJ, do you have that? We can throw up on the screen share.
Yeah.
I want to take a quick look through that, because, you know, that sounds like a hell of a lot of information, but, you know, once it's standardized in this sort of form, you can see all of that information is here. Everything you've just touched upon: times, crew requirements, parking information, production requests, requirements, and any extras, dressing room, office needs here as well.
And
so
your information is also always in your rider that you're sending out. Basically, you're just quickly touching upon those points that are in the rider to just confirm that it's going to work in that space. With Jack White that we have here, for instance, the thing with Jack is that he does not just want to tour arenas. Jack loves to go into old historical theaters in Shreveport, Louisiana, where Elvis did his radio show. And you have a single elevator to get up into that space. So that's when you start really getting into the nuts and bolts of some of these things. Or Madison Square Garden, where everything is taken up to that 5th level by an army of forklifts, right? And all of your trucks are unloading, dumping in one place down in a parking lot, and then have to come up through here. So as Jim was saying earlier, you know, and Adrian was saying, we're striving every day for Groundhog Day, so that it can just be like, you just get this zen, and the load in just kind of happens in amongst itself. So doing these in-depth advances just facilitates that, right?
Right. And you know, you kind of touched upon it there, you know, the rider is such a dense document with so much information covering everything on the tour, that to just pull out the absolute critical information, make it really clear there, everything is just reference points all on one sheet, you know, that is going to make somebody's life 100 times easier when they have a bunch of shows coming up and they're looking for your critical information. one thing that really, the biggest change from a one bus tour or a sprinter tour to a multi-bus, multi-truck tour is that many of the technical roles change from being an in-house venue position to a tour position. And that has its advantages for the tour, but it also brings in a set of challenges. Whereas, you know, if you go through a venue, their in-house audio, lighting, technical crew know that room inside out. Once you bring on your vendor techs, you have to furnish them with a whole bunch of information for every room that you're going to go through. So how do you go about transmitting that information to your crew, Kit?
It depends on the level of what I see as the level of difficulty for the show. If we're going into a standard shed or a standard arena, it's basically I'm just giving folks times when they're coming in. I'm giving folks information of who their counterparts are. Basically, I'm putting down the information that for the stage manager that, oh, here is the name of the crew chief. You know, many times the stage manager already knows the crew chief because they've been through, you know, the Allstate Arena in Rosemont, you know, Illinois, you know, dozens of times already, but sometimes they don't. So you want to make sure that they've got those names so that they can just bring it up on their cell phone and, oh, that's Billy, you know, great. Hey, Billy, good to see you again. And you're also putting in, you know, the information for, you know, your runners, your in-house, sometimes your in-house video staff. It's letting folks know where power is pretty key for your lighting team first thing during the day. And then if you've got the electrician's name, that sort of thing. Mary Jo, would you put up that crew memo?
Yep.
Please.
Yeah. Here we go.
So I try to send out a memo before the night before every show. And basically it has, you know, when the breakfast times, lunch times, dinner times are, everybody always wants to know that. And people get tired of answering that question. You've got your times when folks are coming in. If you go down a little further, you've got how long the travel time is for the next show. There's the names of the different folks in the venue, just to remind people. And you've got pertinent production information for folks. If the show is changing for any reason at all, the area around the production notes is where you would let people know that that's changing. Okay, you had in that production area, that's where you would say, okay, we're cutting down the video walls from, you know, 20 feet across to 15 feet across. Or instead of using all of the scenic that we normally use, we're using a B-rig of scenic so that it can fit in that smaller space. Because a standard arena stage is 60 by 40, 60 wide by 40 deep. You can come into a theater where you have a 30 deep stage, 30-foot deep stage by 40-foot wide stage. So that's going to cut down possibly your lighting system, your scenic, or your video. And that's where that information is key so that your lighting guys can know that going in beforehand. Generally, I try to get them that information, you know, a week out. So if there's any repack in the trucks, they can have that done the night before. If they have a second set of cabling that normally they don't use for the smaller rigs, they can get that out and all that's ready to go. Because these folks being prepared going into these shows just sort of reaffirms that level of zen that everybody has. guys. And by me respecting their time and getting them this information, they feel respected, they're happier, they're going to show respect to the local crews, and everybody's day is just so much easier when they have information.
All right.
1 second. I'm coming out of full screen. There we are. Kit, kind of keeping the conversation going. Let's shift gears into bus one call, arrival and venue. When you roll into the venue, who is on that first bus one call?
A lot of times on bus one, it's going to be the folks in the production office. So you'll have the production manager, the production coordinator. You'll have, a lot of times you'll have head of security or venue security on that bus. You'll have rigging on that bus. And depending on the size of the tour, whoever's coming in with that first call, or bus one and bus two come in at the same time. So you'll have power and lighting, because a lot of times they're the first folks in the door, so that they can, while the rigging's going up, they can be building their lighting to get that up off the floor, because other people come in behind them.
So all the essential crew people that need to be there first to get in the door and start building rigging, so on and so forth, catering, would be your
you would have the caterers. You would also have the caterers coming in first. Sometimes if you've had a day off in that city beforehand, the caterers will even go in before that. Like a couple of them will go in, do a shop, and then, start getting the stuff ready so that they can hit the ground running quicker than anyone else.
Those are those essential things that get us through that Zen day that we're searching for. Can you take us through what your production team does when they walk into a venue?
So everybody obviously is going to have their own, their own start of the day. The stage manager, when that person, he or she, gets off the bus, they walk into the building. Depending on if the steward's there already or not, they'll introduce themselves to the steward or the crew chief, and then they'll start walking around looking for storage space for their cases. Because if you're bringing 12, 16 trucks into arena, all the stuff that's coming off those trucks, stuff's going to come out of the boxes or come out of the set carts. All of that material has to go somewhere, and it has to go somewhere out of sight and out of the way. So they start doing that walkthrough. As the PM, I'm going to come in, take a look, make sure, generally with the rigger, that the downstage edge is spotted in the correct location, that if we've asked them to mark out or build front of house, that is in the correct location. We want to make sure that, the Zamboni hasn't been parked in that third truck bay and that somebody's got the keys for it, so that all your trucks that you've planned to have come in can come in all right. And so that's generally is the PM. That's what I'm looking at the first thing. Then your production coordinator and your backstage coordinator are coming in. They're doing a quick check on catering. They're getting signs up so that whenever anyone else comes into the room, comes into the building, they can find things easily. They can find catering. The truck drivers can find their shower room. We know where the production office is. We know where the dressing rooms are, so that when cases start coming off to the truck that need to go to these different places, they can more easily be directed to those places. The Production coordinators also meeting their local counterpart, whether it's, you know, the promoter rep or it's the runners. That's what they're coming in and doing first. The riggers coming in and marking out the floor, and after they've double checked where 0-0 is on the downstage center edge, you know, then they can start marking out the floor. And they've generally done in advance with the local rigger, just to make sure that the weight's distributed in the roof properly. And, you know, so then they're catching back up. They're letting that rigger know if there's been any changes to the rig, and then they set about to mark the floor. The lighting guys are grabbing a quick bite to eat before they come in and have to start running their cables and everything to get power going and start their day.
Such a detailed list, and obviously as you go from 1.0 into 2.0, that list is just going to keep growing and growing and growing. I'd like to hear from Mariah. Will you tell us when you walk into the venue, how do you start off?
I'm right by Kit's side if we were on tour together. I would be right next to the production manager and the head rigger right off the bat, and making sure we have the local promoter rep there with us, as well as probably venue ops. And as Kit mentioned, some of the key local labor people, the steward, and so they can meet the stage manager. And one of those things that where I would come in liaise, or because like I say, I want everyone's day to be a little bit easier. If for some reason that local venue person's running late, or we don't have all the hands on site, we can start getting ahead of those problems right then and there. And while Kit or the production manager needs to focus on something else, I can kind of run around and check with the venue and the local promoter rep how we're going to solve those unforeseen problems that we didn't see. And the other thing I present Kit with, and we all review to determine where that downstage edge is, which we know in advance due to CADs that are drawn. I always have the most current CAD PDF printed out, as well as audits, so we can see where ticket sales are, and sold maps. And that can really decide, depending on how our show's sold, if we can maybe push back the stage and add some more rows on the floor or side stage. And, or if it's not sold well, do we want to bring the stage up a little bit and help us kill some seats off? So we're usually staring at these maps first thing in the morning and just double checking everything's going. So maybe, I know MJ has the CAD we could actually look at first. I know you have it showing up later, but we can show a quick CAD because it shows the downstage edge.
That is fine. Whatever works best, actually.
And then we'll go into the morning sold map.
Okay.
So here's a CAD that we look at. We have the dimensions of the stage. There's usually a zoom of the floor with a bit more measurements. But we want to make sure that that downstage edge is falling right in line, kind of with the aisle off of 109 and 119. And then I want you guys to note the sight lines that are drawn on here, sections 109 and 110. There's the 180 sight line all the way up to the 270 sight line, because we're going to show you sold maps here in a second to see how far back we've sold and what we walked into morning of show, and then where we ended up night of show, because we were able to open more seats depending on how we laid it out in the morning. And then also, as Kit mentioned, we're front of houses. That is a big important thing, because that also determines not only very important for audio and also your camera locations, but it also how many rows are on the floor and how they get spaced out, and if you can add rows. They all have to fit between that downstage edge and front of house. Yeah, you can go to the AM sold map. So here's a really well sold show. That's because I did my work in advance and I opened as much as possible. Green is sold seats, red are holds, yellow are comps, and black are kills. Section 2 on the floor is front of house, and so there's no seats to actually be gained there. The rows on the back of the floor are something that you could potentially gain on show day, depending if we can squeeze rows in. And then really here, we're looking at sections 110, 215, 114, side stage. And we just need to make sure that that downstage edge doesn't come further into the house because we've already sold a ton of seats in 110 and 114, and we don't want to make those obstructed. So I'm not only there to make sure Kit and everyone else on his team start off smoothly, I'm there to make sure that we don't end up blocking seats that are already sold, and then we can potentially gain seats later in the day. And then once I make sure Kit and everyone's okay, I run down the hall and kind of check with the production coordinator and the dressing room team and make sure they start having their needs met as well. They're getting their furniture, catering's up and running. And if there's any issues, I'll troubleshoot with them.
As we continue the process, which, man, seating is such a thing to navigate, and thank you for running through that. I know it's important for our students to kind of see a visual of that because it is a lot to take in. I'd love to hear from Larry on your process. What are the first things you do when you walk into the building in the morning?
I pretty much start. I mean, I know it's a lot of people when they do tours and they say, you know, security, what time you want to come in? You want to come in at 10? You want to come in at noon? No, if you come in at that time, you are so far behind the game at this day and age. I usually start with the chalk party at 6 a.m. Okay, so I jump right in, get off the bus. I'm not that much of a coffee drinker, but at 6 a.m. I have to have coffee. So that's the one time that I actually will do it. So I will get in with the rest of those guys, get on there because you want to see the markings on the floor, especially you know, if you're in a big size arena or a shed and you've got an artist that, you know, may be doing some type of stunts or gags. You need to know how far the downstage, where they're putting fillers in and side monitors, those kind of things. So you need to know that information. So when you plan your day, those things don't sneak up on you at the last minute. And also, you know, you're doing from sheds to arenas, obviously space is at a major premium. So find out from your stage manager, you know, I found out from, you know, Kit, hey, where are we putting dead cases? Because, you know, you may have an artist that does a meet and greet later. So you don't want to have them storing cases in an area where you potentially could do your meet and greet. And then, you know, now you got to say, hey, Kit, you know, can you get some hands to move this stuff? Or it could be at that time, labor's gone or on break or something like that. So you definitely don't want to interfere with that process. So it's a good thing to get up in the morning, walk through all that, you know, check out dressing rooms, in the event that, you know, you may have certain artists that may not like other artists if you're doing a, you know, hip hop tour or something like that. So when they're picking those dressing rooms, you want to be there to make sure, hey, I wouldn't put this particular group next to this particular group. I mean, that, you know, because you'll have a problem later on. So definitely, because you're the ears, you know, when you're walking with that artist, you know, either to stage or from stage or on the exit out, and they start making those comments, you listen to what they're saying. So you want to relay that message that next morning, that next show, hey, let's not put this here because he or she don't like this. Let's not do this. So very important to do that stuff in the morning. Otherwise, you're going to have problems later.
Thank you. And Larry, it's also, you know, in my interactions with Larry and when we are doing a walk together in the morning, I'm also asking him to sometimes, you know, you can place your principals accordingly and they might have certain needs, but also, Larry, what do you think security wise? Is this an exposed room where something else is not as exposed that Larry might see, that we might not see? So that's really teamwork. And let me just remark that we've just spent 10 minutes talking about just getting in the building. We are not even, trucks have no, we don't have loaders and pushers till right now, guys. So this get in, as they call it in Europe, the get in, the load in, getting in the door in an organized manner, having your team come in that way and be prepared is the beginning of the alchemy of your Groundhog Day, which you love. So now we're actually loading in. A lot of times what will happen is at this point, your stage managers might have a prep meeting with the hands to familiarize them with the day, making them understand what we're going to have, what might be weird, what to expect, and how we run the show. Kit, can you tell us a little bit about how you start your load in? Also, before we jump to Kit, something that we discussed yesterday, which is super interesting, is that we develop audio cues, things that you hear going on that mark what time of day it is. You may not always be looking at your watch, but you know that we're all hitting certain marks. We're hitting, if you're dealing with catering, are the lunch guys ready? We're hitting union breaks. We're hitting coffee breaks. We're hitting the 4-hour minimums. We're hitting sound check. We're hitting doors. We're hitting showtime. We're hitting curfew, right? So we're all watchers, but also auditory cues of things that happen every day in Groundhog Day will cue you to do your thing as well. And we'll get into that as we move throughout the day. Load in, go for Kit.
Okay. So when we're starting the load in, one of the best ways to start is if the stage manager gathers up all of the local crew around them, does an introduction of themselves, and basically, a quick safety meeting, basically asking everybody to look out for one another, keep their eyes open. And, one thing that I like to say is if something looks wrong, it's probably wrong. Let your crew chief know, let the whoever is your lead at that point in time know, let the stage manager know so it can be fixed. Because if you see something that looks wrong and someone gets hurt, it's kind of on you. Like, you didn't say anything. We've all got to look out for one another. And there's also, that shows the local crew that, there's a level of respect for them, and that you're also, requiring that level of respect in return. So that's going to help everyone, set the tone. As Jim said yesterday, it sets the tone for, the rest of the day with that local crew. You're going to have your rigging, power, catering truck in the hole first. A lot of times that's going to be your lead driver. For trucks, that's where you start dumping, and you get the catering to its location, you get power distribution to its location, and then you start getting rigging out onto the floor where, one of your riggers or one of the locals just says, this is where all of this goes. Generally, before this loading happens, you'll have a quote unquote walking chalk, and you call in the lead rigger and probably another couple of riggers to hold tapes, and they start getting everything laid out so that when the actual load-in call itself starts, there's something for these guys to be doing. And you've got hands getting cases and gear into where it's supposed to go, and the riggers can start building steel and getting reading the floor chalk and getting points up in the air. After that, you're looking at lighting. Lighting's already got power laid out, but now you're going to start dumping your lighting trucks, because you're working in the order to get stuff into the air so that you can bring stuff in underneath it, right? So you want to get the lighting flown up and out of the way. Then after you've got your lighting points hung and you're working on lighting, then you move downstage and you start hanging audio, and getting that PA up and done. While PA is starting to work, you're generally looking at a second call coming in. You stagger your calls so that you can just make sure that you get all the work that you need to get done within the minimums, so that you're not spending undue money. So
Indeed.
Staggered calls, I've found with large arena shows, are a great way to go about doing this if the local rules and regulations allow that, because you can bring in your first call, work them for a 4 to 5 hour, and then you bring in a second call and you work them for a 4 to 5 hour. So your first call will work with lighting and audio and doing some other of the bigger things that happen first. When that stuff gets finished, those folks are leaving. Then you've got your second call that's coming in, that's working on carps and video and backline and getting that staging area, the stuff that's happening towards the end of the load in, done. And then they're getting done by their minimum as well. And then that makes the tour, that keeps undue expenses down, right?
Thank you.
Yeah. And so after or while audio is happening, if you're carrying a rolling stage or you have a rolling stage and you've got a lot of carpentry that has to happen, some set pieces that go on stage, you're going to have those guys building that stage out in the front of, out in the house, as we would say, the other end of the arena from where the stage actually goes to. So they've built the stage, they're getting the scenic on that, they're doing what they're doing while audio lighting is happening over the stage. Then you're going to start getting video world set up backstage. And if you've got rolling wings, you can start setting up maybe a backline area on your stage right wing and a monitor area on your stage left wing out in the house. You were saying the auditory cues that you're listening to. I'm looking at cues throughout the day. I want all of rigging to be up. I would prefer it to all be up within 2 hours. That's fairly aggressive, and I have the riggers tell me that that's fairly aggressive all the time. But 11 o'clock is when you need to have the last audio point or the last video point being pulled. If you've got floating folding screens, those can go up a little later, but you want all of the big stuff to be hung by 11, because then you know if that stuff's hung by 11, you know how long it's going to take the lighting guys to finish their hang, the video guys to finish their hang, the audio guys to finish their hang. You'll be able to start pushing that rolling stage into position at 1 o'clock, 1 p.m.
Right on. Thank you, Kit. So before we go, meanwhile, Mariah, what are you doing? The one thing that I want to say in summation to all of that is that the way that the buses come in, the way the bus riders are allocated, the way the trucks are packed, and the way the trucks come in is all artfully designed. It's always going to be production and rigging and then lighting and then audio and then video. And it's designed that way so that we can get into a groove faster and stay in that groove faster and achieve great day. So meanwhile, cases are coming off the truck, click, 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 motor boxes are coming down, and we check in with Mariah, who is doing what at this time during load-in? Remember, we still haven't hit lunch yet.
We haven't hit lunch yet. Usually somewhere around 10 a.m.-ish on a big arena tour or a average amphitheater tour. A lot of your ancillary people are arriving, and there's probably a bus full of them. If you're carrying a reverb person, a VIP person, a lane one person, merch people like that. So Kit can continue doing his job and focusing on that, and production coordinator can do theirs. I will kind of catch them and make sure they're connected with the proper people that they've already advanced with, work with the local production and venue ops to make sure that they are all coordinated and they can start doing their advance. And same with Larry, I might be interfacing with security and hope that they're doing well. And then also I'm going to be interfacing with ticketing and kind of let them know what we saw right off the bat at load-in, because they not always are there. And if we think we can open more seats, if we can release stuff, start pulling tickets for guest lists and have ticketing print that to give to tour management if they know what they will need at that time. Yeah, let's see. I check. Yeah, I run around to production. Cash. Usually the box office holds all the cash, so I will go grab the cash and have it ready for when the tour accountant or if the production coordinator takes some cash for their float and make sure that that is delivered and checks are signed. Occasionally some bills are coming in at that time, but usually not quite yet. That's usually in the afternoon before I start really thinking about settlement. But at that time, I'm thinking amplify ticket sales, help make sure the day is running well and no one's behind or stuck in the mud somewhere. And then I'll ultimately start setting up my office.
Amazing. Okay. And before we go, meanwhile, Larry we're going to say, hey, Pete Beadle, we see you in the room. Love having you. Pete is the founder and one of the co-owners of MPB Security and a previous guest of ours who we love. So Larry, morning time, what's happening in security land?
Okay, so typically, after, I've done all my walkthroughs with the, promoter, local promoter, finding out, where the different areas are. And hopefully by then, like, depends on the tour, I mean, some of your office equipment and production may come off first, or it may come off after lighting. So it just depends on what you're doing. So next thing you want to do is you want to start getting your pass sheets out. Now, typically what I do, if you have a team, if you're doing a big arena or stadium, you may have a team of about 4 to 5 guys, which is great.
Half a second introduction so we can quickly just say, Jim Digby, we love you. Thank you for all of your contributions to the health of this industry. We look forward to seeing you soon. Thank you for coming and joining us today.
Thank you, Jim. Thanks for joining us today.
Download the reopening guidance. Love you guys. Thanks so much.
Check out the Event Safety Alliance reopening guidance. It's very important. Not a shameless plug because we need it. All right, back to you, legend.
All right, so we're getting the pass sheets out is on your next agenda. Like I said, if you have a team on these like bigger, larger stadium tours or huge arena tours, you have a team of 4 or 5 guys. It's great to spread out the duties of everybody. But for the past 3 or so years, I've pretty much been riding solo. So I don't typically try not to wait to get my pass sheets out. I want to do them first thing in the morning. So just to kind of backtrack, the night before, if I'm at a gig, I'll print the next day's pass sheet. So when I get off the bus at 6 a.m., I have them ready for them to start distributing. So, the security can start saying, okay, this is what we allow in, making sure that all of our personnel has their proper credentials to enter the facility. So we don't have any troubles in that direction. Now, after we get the office set up, the next thing that I want to start doing is start getting my emergency evacuation signs up, as far as how to evacuate the building, usually with our green signs, our evac plan of a homeroom. I put the room. Mary Jo, if you could put that up on the screen.
Yep. Second here. Where are we? Oh, I did have it open. Okay.
Perfect.
So,
no, that's the wrong one.
Oh, hey.
Wrong one. Checklist.
This isn't it?
Yeah.
Oh, the checklist. Sorry about that. Let's try this again.
Larry, really quick, while MJ is pulling that document up, will you talk about the email that you send out to us daily that I don't think we touched on in prep, but please tell us also about that.
Some of the things that you want to do, and you can put it in any particular order, but you make sure you want to have all of these things done. So, for me, if I had to leave the venue early, we have a security report, about the last show. You want to complete that for the morning because we carry a book that has all the information from every city that we go to. You want to drop off the security information to the local promoters. So tell them to get their pass request in so we can start issuing passes to the locals, those type of things. So it just kind of goes down everything that you need to do. So what I do is I will initial when I complete anything from the list. You can scroll up a little bit, Mary Jo, so that you see different things on it. As you start completing them, you want to check them off, initial them. If you have a team, of a large unit, so whoever you assign that task, when they complete the task, they'll initial it. So that way, it's done. And then always, when you see that everything has been initialed and done, just go over everything again, just to make sure that it was completed, from that point. So after you get that up, you start getting your signs up. And just to back up what you said, Adrian, so usually at that particular point, I will start emailing the evac plan to everyone on the tour. Okay, so there's a prep, which we'll talk about at lunchtime, but there's a pre-email that we send out to everyone, letting them know what to do in the event of an emergency. So I will email that, maps on how to evacuate. MJ, if you can pull up let's do the dressing room map first.
Okay. Hang on. second. Is it the,
Dressing room. O2 Arena dressing room.
oh, got it. It says evac map. That's why I wasn't sure. Okay.
There we go.
Okay.
Perfect. So this is a map that you get from any local promoter. So you find out, you see where we have all of the dressing rooms, where everything is located. The red arrows will indicate how and where to evacuate in event of any type of emergency. You see where we have our homeroom, production, tour management. Every room we try to get on the map so people will know, okay, here's where it's located. And then if I need to evacuate, where am I going? So every arrow will indicate where to go to the buses or to another area. And we also, what we have is called a reunification point. So MJ, if you could pull that up.
Okay, I'm going to stop sharing here for a minute because I have all these folders open. Okay.
And then also I put these up in every dressing room on the wall, so they get sent to it in an email form as well, arrive in case you get those ones that don't really read the email. So now we have a reunification point. So in the event of an emergency where we had to evacuate, we need a place to meet. And just in case you're not in those areas, obviously the rules of a emergency situation is run, hide, fight. Okay, we have a protocol that we use. We call it the home room, which is a safe room, which we could barricade ourselves in. Sometimes it may have a lock and key. And I always tell people, don't rely and be waiting on me just because I'm in security. Okay, it's called run, hide, and fight. If I'm in a different area, guess what I'm going to do? I'm going to run. Okay, I'm going to get out. We're going to meet at that hotel. So all points, no matter how you get out, the exit signs are up. You get out that sign, you go to that hotel. We also we set up an 800 number that we give out to every single person. We have their information. It's a hotline. Everyone is sent a hotline. It's on the sheet. We call that hotline, say, hey, there's an emergency going on. I'm in London. I'm at the O2 Arena. I just arrived at the Intercontinental Hotel. I'm safe. Okay, so then we have a log of everyone who's listed on the tour that we can start checking off, and we can find out, if they're located or if they're lost. So that's very important that they know where to go in case they get separated. They can't get to the homeroom and hide. You can obviously relocate to the reunification point.
Awesome. Terrific. Okay. I think that takes us kind of into lunchtime. Now, if you're a tour manager, what is the tour manager doing? We're talking about between load in and up to lunch. TM may or may not be in the building, depending on the logistics of how the tour is running. The TM may still be at the hotel if you're coming out of a day off, or if your A/potential B party has a hotel every day. That TM may be with the traveling party at the hotel and on the way in shortly. If the buses have rolled up to the venue and you're doing back to back, the TMs will likely come off. Some TMs are crack-a-dawners and they like to be lurking around. Others do not. Others will wait. Sometimes if we've got a dressing room situation and my coordinator needs me to just have a final look-see at something, because in the pop world where I spend a lot of time, we've got lots of people on stage with our principals, and the principals may or may not have something to say. There's a lot of stuff that happens. So I may come in and walk through and answer any questions and then start my day early and slowly. I also don't want to put a lot of pressure on anybody who thinks that because I'm in the building, they need to start coming up with things that we may not be asking for until later, which Mariah is going to start to get into. So also, as a TM, as a production coordinator, as a road manager, as a VIP person, we're talking a lot about checklists. I use them for every single gig that I do, regardless. I have the same checklist. And all I do is adjust it accordingly to whatever tasks the particular touring position has. Let's face it, we're out there, we're tired. We're not sleeping in a bed. We're rolling down the highway. We got a lot going on. The days are long. The nights are short. There's not a lot of time for sleeping. A brain can only take so many hits before it starts to drop things. So help yourself out, but with cheat sheets. I know lots of wardrobe ladies who have laminated cards that they keep on their belts that they flip through when their brains lose it. So just prepare yourself with lots of tools. Yeah. And we moving on.
All right, it's lunchtime. It's probably early afternoon, noon, 1 o'clock. And Kit, what are you doing at this point?
Around lunchtime, I'm trying to sneak in a quick bite to eat. That's always a good thing. Then at 1 o'clock, that's when your stage needs to roll into position. So I'm generally out there with the stage manager, with the promoter rep, with Mariah. When the stage rolls into position, we're making sure that it's exactly where it needs to be. And then Mariah and I can start looking at seating and confirming that that goes into where it needs to go. And then Larry can start looking at barricade. My crew, the production crew, then starts cabling up the stage, and they're running audio cables, lighting cables. Hopefully they've already gotten everything set on the deck, or a good bit of the stuff set on the deck. Depends on how much weight that the stage can roll with on top of there. That's a kind of lets you know exactly how much stuff you can put on there that the stage can still roll into position. And then at that point in time, the team starts getting the back line up onto the stage and getting that plugged in and cabled, and everything gets mic'd up. Then after that's done, that's production right there until we start moving into a line check, sound check scenario.
And Mariah, what are you doing?
Let me unmute myself. I am, as he said, I'm right there with him, making sure that the stage is in place, and I'm really going to see if we can add seats to the floor if inventory is needed, and climb up into those sections 110 we were looking at that map, and make sure all the seats that we sold have a full view. And if we can open up more, grab ticketing and make sure we can open up more seats. So for those people out there that, how do I get floor seats on day of show, or how did I get these side stage seats? It's because we are making sure we can max out all of that. And I want to have a quick note about how to use your promoter rep and use your tour rep. I've been on tours where the people will put me in the corner and never talk to me, and it's really to their disadvantage. Because I can help maximize sales, I can help solve problems. I remember walking into a production conversation where they needed golf carts, and the local venue kept telling them no. And then I went in and talked to people I knew, and I got those golf carts, no problem. So times like these, this afternoon, is when Adrian could come in and say, I need 10 more tickets and we only have 50 comps. Can you find me 10 more tickets? And that's where it comes in. I can put an extra row right by front of house right now and help Adrian out.
And I probably want to know what happened to those front of house kills. Did we pick up any seats there?
Right.
This is the time where I start to micromanage the audit.
Yep.
And
I have an ongoing inventory in my mind, so she knows she can come to me. We could also have Larry coming to me because he has some sort of issue where the artist has now decided they want to run up here. Can we take this dasher out? And though Larry may have relationships with the locals, and though Adrian has relationships with locals and Kit has relationships, they're with me every day. So they can just come to me because they know I will be honest with them. I can tell them that's not going to happen and that's going to be hard. And I can, as Jim Digby said, manage expectations. And I'd be like, yeah, we can make that happen. Give me a second. So use your local rep and your touring rep to be this liaison to help solve these quirks and problems when you have these last minute questions, and utilize your time to be better at your gig, whether it be taking care of the artist or making sure that show happens or making sure they're secure. Let me run around and do these little busy work type things. And so in addition to that and maximizing sales and helping out with these questions about inventory, I am also gathering up all the expenses so I can present them to the tour manager or tour accountant. I'm reviewing them. Let's say load in went long. I have that in the back of my mind already because I was on site and there, and I might know why stagehands might be high, and just try to review all these things to make sure kit's on board, security's on board before we present it off to the accountant to prevent any arguments at night.
All right, and Larry, what are you doing during this time?
I just want to actually tag on to what Mariah said. Very well said. So when that stage gets pushed, it's pretty much, you and your security crew, all hands on deck. So it's probably barricade time at that point. Again, I'm with Mariah, in case, again, like you said, if the artist has like eagle walk, so they go extend out into the crowds on your stage left, stage right. We need to make sure, okay, we need to kill these seats so far back so nobody jumps up onto the stage. Weird things like that, you want to be out there for it, so you can prep, the barricade, those areas, like that, seeing, like if they have anything, the barricading, maybe they didn't account for the subs. The subs had to be removed, put in areas, so we got to adjust the barricade. How many seats can we kill? Definitely those are the times that, like I say, I'm side by side with Mariah trying to figure out those problems, so we can pretty much have a successful show when it's time for the artist walks in.
All right, Mary Jo, as a tour manager, what have you been doing up till now, and what are you going to doing at this time of day?
Typically at this level of touring, I'm off site with the artist. I have worked with a couple of artists who do ride the bus in, but they've been pretty tuned into not rolling into the venue. But I think typically at this level of touring, you're off site with the artist, either traveling in, maybe you're at the hotel. And if I'm at the hotel or traveling, I'm just consistently communicating with the team at the venue to just keep them up to date with where we're at, and if there's anything that they need to know that's happening on my end, and also finding out any information that might impact the movements of the party that I'm with. Like if things are delayed at the venue and they need us to hold off on coming over, communicating with the artist's personal security, and if there's a road manager, communicating with them and the artist assistant, if the artist has one, making sure everybody is on the same page about movements and when you'll arrive at the venue. And that's pretty much what's going on at that point in time, possibly a little bit of press if we were doing promo during the day, but.
Right on. Well, let's talk Soundcheck the doors. And MJ or Adrian, I don't remember who it was yesterday who was talking about the triggering effect of the ringing out the PA.
That was Adrian.
Permanently burnished into your memory, and that's very true. Once you hear that white noise, pink noise coming through the house, it's time. Things are moving out there, and if you don't do that, we're running late.
Yeah, for sure, and particularly for me, ticketing is always a thing. So when I hear the white noise, my right hand reaches out for the imaginary pile of tickets. And if it isn't there, I'm grasping and I'm looking, I'm like, now I'm behind because I needed these tickets on my desk hours ago. Right. So now I'm looking for the promoter rep or the box office person who I've been liaisoning with to grab my tickets. And also for me, I'm also doing another round of texting to all of my key players that may have last minute requests, because I'm going to start doing a day of show ticket release at this point as well, so we can make more money and put more stuff on sale to the people.
Absolutely. And
that's funny. There's a side conversation happening, and Paige Turner just said the white noise also means might I have missed lunch. That's the thing. Also, the auditory cues also remind us have we eaten, and is it time for catering to switch over?
I'm not sure that's a question. I think it's more of a statement. It's I have missed lunch.
Oh my God, I've missed lunch. Yeah, yeah.
Kit,
For sure.
Soundcheck is clearly one of the most critical time periods of the day for the production team. So walk us through what you guys are doing then.
So one of the things is getting up to the line check and the sound check, and I'd like to touch base on what Mary Jo had been saying a minute or so ago, that communication with your artist and your TM and letting them know that everything is ready for them to be on site is key. You don't want to have your artist show up and expect to walk on stage and then have to tell them that, oh no, we're going to have you hold in the dressing room for 15, 20, 25 minutes. It's not a good look. It's not a good feeling for them. It's not a good feeling for the TM that has to answer questions from the artist at that point in time. So that communication between production, the TM, the artist party is key, getting up to that. And then also touching on a point that Mariah made earlier, it's throughout all of this getting up to this point, we're working with Mariah, working with Larry, working with your stage manager. As a production manager, you have to have a team around you that you can trust, and you have to empower those people to do their jobs and to help you out. None of us can do it all, especially when it gets to something this size, that, just getting to that sound check, you're going to have to rely on people. So it behooves you to have the best team around you possible. That being said, moving into sound check, generally we're doing a line check before the sound check, making sure everything's finalized, ready for that artist to come on stage. And then for that sound check, if I haven't walked the artist and the TM into the building when they've arrived, then I'm generally walking them from their dressing room to the stage, or I'm at the stage ready for the artist at that point in time. I'm kind of hanging out there where the artist can see me, where the tour manager can see me, in case they have questions on something that happened the night before. They've got suggestions about something they want to do new for the show. There's just being there. And also if there's something that's different, if something has had to move, like they're used to this piece of gear or this piece of scenery being in the same place every night, and it had to move 3 feet for some reason, be it sight lines for seating, be it, the stage is smaller than it generally is. You want to let your artists know those things right then and right there, because as has been said, nobody likes surprises. If you give everybody the information, including your artists, then they're not surprised, and then they can do their job.
For sure.
Yeah, and then real quick during sound check, after there's been that interface with the artist and the TM, then you're making sure that all systems are 100%. Like you're checking in with your lighting crew chief, your sound crew chief, your video crew chief, your stage manager, double checking that everything's 100% a go. Are there any issues that you haven't been made aware of that you need to be aware of?
Amazing. Mariah, you're about to get into the busy time of your day running up to doors. Can you walk us through it?
Yeah, so assuming we're in Groundhog Day and soundcheck goes on time and the chairs are set and the venue is also ready to go. So we have to also remember there's a whole other operational thing happening around us is this venue, whether there's traffic or parking or their concessions or their power and their staffing. I kind of jump around from party to party again, making sure that the venue's getting close and getting ready for doors, Kit and everyone on stage is ready. Security is ready. That's a huge one. And he'll talk about that. Larry will talk about that. And I'm also grabbing Adrian's guest list and running it up to the box office, or maybe pulling last minute tickets, or helping even kind of a catch-all, maybe grab some VIP guests and run them around, because Larry needs to go make sure his security is placed. Kit's dealing with some production issue, and Adrian's with the band, whatever it may be. Being available. And if it's a super smooth day and I don't have to run around like crazy, I am in my office working on other shows to make sure we don't run around as crazy on the next one, because you're advancing and talking all of this stuff out.
Right.
Right. Yeah. I always think of it as this sort of crescendo of the whole day builds and it builds and it builds and it builds, and especially with the promoter rep and the TM and the production office in general, everything is building, and then doors open and you suddenly have, hopefully, a moment of calm. Once the doors are open, once everything is working, the show is up, kids are coming in, fans are in the door, then we have a second to breathe. But Larry, talk us through what you're going through in that pre-doors time, sound check the doors.
So basically just before sound check, around lunch, again, just like everyone says, I agree with you to make sure that I try to grab something to eat before I pass out. Then after that, typically, getting ready for artist arrivals, either be band, or the headliner or whoever. So I usually try to, send out them maps and directions on where the drop-off point is going to be. So there's no issues at the gate when they're coming in. If I got to, get with, Mariah until they get to the promoter rep and give a description of the vehicles coming in. So we want that transaction to be super smooth on the arrival. So I'm pretty much geared up and then waiting. So actually, when the band comes, I can show them how to get to their dressing rooms. When the artist arrives, I show them how to get to their dressing rooms and, address any needs they would need coming in. Hey, well, I need this. I got a last minute guest list for a VIP artist who's coming in. So obviously, I'll get with Mariah, let them know, hey, those kind of things usually pop up when the artist arrives. So also making passes. Adrian is really good on knowing my schedule and, trying to get the early guest list and tickets and passes needed in before I hit my security meeting. So I'll try to get the bulk of them in, because obviously you got to bend, there's going to be more later, but the more I can get out of the way, the better it's going to be for me. So after that time, I'll set up my security meeting, invite the locals, local promoter rep, security, EMT if necessary, depending on the type of show that you're doing. Going over the advanced with them and your security protocols, things that you advance, the numbers, letting them know if you get any kind of, gags or goofy stuff, throwing balloons into the crowd and stuff like that, so they'll know, be ahead of the game and know what's coming. And then also ask them if they have anything special or weird going on, like season ticket holders and the suites could come in early for a VIP package, or those type of things, we need to know about, because if we're doing a closed sound check, that could become an issue. So just want to make sure during that security meeting that you ask all those questions and give them as much information as possible, so that way sound check it runs smoothly.
Cool. So Kit, so now we're at doors. So just before doors are typically 1.5, 2 hours before the show. What are you doing to get doors open and then immediately at doors? We've gotten that far.
So to get doors open, one of the things is to get with Mariah or the local promoter rep and just confirm that we're on the same page with lighting for doors. Like there's certain places that you have to have certain lights on for exit and entrance, making sure that the level's set, and then also making sure that, when they're doing any advertisements on their video boards or their video ribbons in-house, when those are going to be running, how often, how long, letting them know what your artist expects during that point in time. Like some artists, they don't want to see any advertisements whatsoever in the arena once the doors open, and it's in finding that line there. Just making sure you've got house music on, making sure that lighting has a good stage look up, checking around, making sure that you have security in front of house and on your access points to the stage, and that there's not any loose chair carts out on the floor, or that, you know, somebody hasn't spilled a bucket of mop water on right where one of your main entrances in. You're checking to make sure that everything's 100%.
And Mariah, as Kit said, you guys are working in conjunction to get, you know, just to get there. What are you doing on your end of things during this time?
So I was just thinking about that. Jaws is usually, on most tours that I've been on, a big powwow with security, production, venue ops, venue's head of security, and the promoter reps. And let me know if I'm missing someone there. But we usually all meet out on the floor, either by downstage edge or the middle of the floor. And that is when we're kind of clicking through the radio channels, making sure all the other departments are also ready and they've finished. They don't need to run the PA anymore. Walk-in music can come on. Kit might, like he said, point out that there's a chair cart. Okay, I'll go deal with that while he's talking to his audio people. And it's really just a team effort to make sure all these different departments are ready to go. And my big one is really liaising with the venue in case we do have to hold doors, which could always come up.
Right.
Whether it be on the promoter side or the venue side. Maybe the venue's like, our ticket scanners are down. We can't open doors right now.
It might be on the artist side. We may need a minute on stage for something.
Exactly. Either way, and just being all in one spot to communicate that and why, and have everyone be understanding and ready to go when things are ready to go.
Also, I just want to add something here, just as this is a little bit of a left fielder, but weather issues happen here too. We may opt, if it's pouring and we're not ready to go to doors and people are outside waiting to get in, we may open the doors to a concourse before we open the actual whole arena doors, the bowl doors, so that we can get people out of the rain. You know, this is the time when audibles are called.
Yep. Or there's a traffic jam or all sorts of things that can definitely come up. We've all been through them. We've had one where a chair cart ran, or a barricade sliced the PA cable in half. You know, there's really great things that could come up that could really, we still had a show and it all happened, but we decided to push the whole thing. Or your support act never showed up, so you're just going to change your set times. All different things that could come up. And you're really kind of bracing for that. Around Soundcheck, you kind of know if your day's going well, and if Soundcheck goes well, there's not a whole lot that could really come up between then and doors, but potentially weather. And so the big key thing about opening doors is it's a better audience experience once people are in easier and less in lines, and it's a better security experience. The more people are flowing through earlier, and you want a full room when the artist actually goes on. So once those people are filing in, I'm kind of watching them fill in, making sure seats that we opened were sold, making sure that there's no big ugly gaps, things like that, or if there's stuff weird going on after we open doors. It's also a money maker for the venue. And like I said, I try to make everyone a little bit more money. The earlier people in, the more merch is sold, stuff like that.
And Larry, how about you?
During that time, just before doors, I'm pretty much going over my checklist again, making sure that, you know, the barricade is ready to go. You know, depending on your style of barricade, or if you even have one. You know, sometimes we didn't have a barricade on certain shows, but you want to make sure that, you know, all your pins are in, all the security is in the place before we open doors. And then again, you know, with Mary Jo and Kurt, we're all right there together on the floor. Once everything's in place, we make the determination that we're ready for doors.
And Jim, when you're as a TM between Soundcheck and doors, what are you doing?
Well, it kind of depends on the role I'm on in the tour, because as a tour manager, depending on the tour, it changes. If I'm settling the show, I'm getting my final bits and pieces together, trying to get it together so when the band gets on stage, I can get settlement going. Sometimes if I'm walking the band to stage, I'm doing the countdown with them to get them prepped for it. I'm making sure they have everything they need. If that's my role, I'm making sure that everything, even if it's not my role, I'm making sure that everybody else is covered backstage, ready to do the show, has everything they need. If there's guests coming in for the band that they're expecting, I'm making sure they're parked in and they get in. And if I have security around, I'm working with them to make sure that the guests are parked in and to the band. So it all depends on the tour, but it's basically doing whatever needs to be done to keep the band happy and keep the show, the early part of the show going, and even making sure the band is eaten. So
Right. And again, we talk about this all the time. We do a lot of making sure that our comrades have had a meal, talking to catering about, holding things, or just, you got to keep your people together. So thank you for that. I wanted to just say hey to Norman Smith too, and all those MPB guys that have joined Larry today. My friend Ibis from Miami, mi gente. Nice to see everybody joining us. So Mariah, it's showtime. So we're finally at the thing we all came here to do, which is the show. It's showtime. Mariah, where are we, darling?
Well, I've made sure I've grabbed the guest list from the ticketing person, and all those final things are done, but I also might have a couple tickets in my back pocket if something crazy comes up. I will gather the local venue person, ops person, the local promoter rep, and try to be as close as possible side stage to where I know the tour manager and production manager are going to be. And this is very similar to Doors. It's having all key people around when top of show happens. I'm also looking at seats like a hawk and making sure it's filling in. Do we need to hold the show because there was a traffic jam and people just aren't in, or stuff like that happened? Because we want the people who bought tickets to see a full show, and we want the artist to play to a full audience. So I'm definitely out on the floor right about showtime. Between Doors and show, I'm doing what Rungi just said, getting my bills together, having Kit and Larry sign off on bills, tracking them down, plugging in audits, making sure all those last holds are released for people who want to walk up and buy a ticket. And then we all gather side stage or somewhere at the top of show to make sure that it goes off. And is this a good point right now to maybe show where we've sold?
Sure.
Yeah, let me.
Why not? And this we're talking about sold maps. We're also hi Dave Oken, to Dave Oken's very valid point. We're looking at drop counts or scan counts. Because this is how we know
how many people are in.
How are we doing? Are we needing to hold the show? Is there something that's causing a delay at Doors? Is there a bag check? Is it a security issue? Is it Friday night? Was there an accident on the freeway? These are all variables that we deal with in real time to make sure that not only does do our patrons get the best experience, but also that the artist knows that those people that came to see that show are in the door. So here we are later in the day.
We were able to open the rest of 110. We were able to open a lot of 114. We were able to open up to 220. You'll notice all those holds are gone. They either turned into comps pulled by the artist, or we opened them for sale. We did actually add rows, but what we don't have time to go through here is we added them to the back of C, B, and A instead of F, E, and D. So if we actually counted the number of rows from the first map to this map, there are more. And we were able to sell them for a higher ticket price because we were able to put them closer to the stage, while I sold the stuff rear side stage for a lower ticket price. Right. But we were able to maximize sales once that stage was in place at 1 p.m., went up into those seats and made sure it made sense that audio could hit those points and people could still enjoy the show there. So that's what it looked like by the time the show happened.
Amazing. Thank you so much. And okay, over to you, Kit. What's happening?
So at the top of the show, I'm side stage or front of house with Mariah. and more than likely the tour manager. When the artist hits the stage, we're just confirming that all systems are go. Everything's 100%. That it's running like the well-oiled machine that we've designed it to be. Once that's been verified and everybody's comfortable with that, I generally do a venue walkthrough, starting with the floor, going up to the mezzanine, and then up to the higher levels to make sure that the lighting system is, how the designer wants it to look, making sure that we've got great audio coverage throughout the entire room, and that the mix is, where the front of house engineer wants that mix to be. And making notes, sometimes written notes, sometimes mental notes, and then looking around to see if there's, anything wrong, just keeping an eye out. And then if I see anything that looks, iffy, sometimes I'll give, the head of security, I'd give Larry a call and say, hey, you might want to go check this out. What's happening over in this section here. After that, I go back to the production office. Once I feel that everything's going smooth, I head back to the production office. I'll go through different bills quickly that, I've received from either Mariah or the TM, just confirm that, stagehand bills are good. Any rentals we have are good, so that then settlement can proceed as needed. After I get that taken care of, then I'm making sure that the crew memo for the next day is in order, getting that to my production coordinator so that that person can then get that out to everyone for the next day's show. And at that point in time, I'm also getting my loadout sheet to the stage manager, the head of the local crew, and then getting it over to my department heads as well, so that everybody has a good idea on how loadout is supposed to go. Mary Jo, do you have that you could bring up with the screen share, please?
Do. Bear with me just a second.
So
While she's pulling that up, one of the other things that we're all trying to do is we're also prepping for loadout. Partway through that show, we are realizing that we're leaving. The next thing we're doing is leaving. So in your mind, you've got to start while you're doing whatever it is that you're doing. You got to be ready to break it all down, your personal bits and bobs that have landed all over your desk.
So basically, we've got where all the trucks are located. This has already been discussed with your lead driver, and most of the trucks, hopefully the trucks, half the trucks are in the hole already if you only have a 6-truck tour. This also lets, your heads of departments know where their trucks are going to be. Then you're going through quick notes for your heads of departments. One of the things that I've found is the top of the loadout sort of sets the tone for the entire loadout. You don't just want to crush the stage with backline cases, lighting cases, all of that. You want to do it in a organized, respectful manner to your backline techs, because this is their bread and butter, just like it is everybody's. So they're going to want time with their gear after the show goes down. So sometimes you have to relay that in the notes to the other departments. If your loaders can go out and do front of house, this is where I put those notes in there as well.
Great.
And then just kind of set the entire loadout up for everyone to see it, so everybody has a feel for how it's going to go.
All righty. Moving right along, Larry, it's showtime.
Showtime. So all the hard prep work months of advancing, 6 a.m. in the morning, get in there, ready for everything that you work for is about to happen. So typically, I'm right down there in the dress room hallway. I usually will go to show channel just so like as we get those ticket counts, I can hear them. And then if they ask, oh, how full is he? I can relay that message, ready for them to go. Get the walk started, going to the stage, on the agreed upon route to the stage, making sure that the hallway is clear for the artist to get there. And then when we get there, I'm pretty much in the barricade and doing my thing in the pit.
Right on. Okay. And 5-1, my friend, where is the tour manager at showtime and during the show?
What I usually do is after I walk the artist to the stage, I hand them off to the stage manager, and I'll usually watch like the first song or two. Then for me, I like to stretch and try to go outside and get some fresh air just to kind of clear my mind, because when you're in the venue all day and not getting any fresh air, it does affect you. And once I've heard like the third or fourth song and know that everything's all right, along with the production coordinator, I just double check that if we're staying overnight in that particular city, I just make sure that the SUVs are lined up, the drivers know where to pull up, along with someone like with Larry, just to make sure that they're there. If we are flying to the next city, I'll just make sure that the FBO knows of our arrival time, just make sure that I have the pilot's information and the flight attendants information, just to kind of text them that, hey, we're going to be leaving the venue at this time. We're still confirmed for Wheels Up. The other stuff that I do is if we're staying in that particular city, I also get with the production coordinator just to make sure that the bus drivers are still getting picked up at the appropriate time that we agreed on. And I also make sure with the production coordinator that if we are moving on to the next city, that hotel that we're going to be checking into like 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8 o'clock in the morning, that night person knows of our arrival time and that we're going to be arriving in 1 or 2 buses, make sure that the keys are already cut, that they're ready for us. And then I'm usually the tour accountant also, so then I finish up settlement. And then after that, I get the hell out of there. I just get to the stage, make sure that when the artist comes off stage, have towels for them, walk them to the dressing room, just double check if there is, now that this is all pre-COVID, make sure if there wasn't a post-show meet and greet. So right. I think that might be a little different coming up. But just double check with the artist, hey, we're going to leave at this time. We either have Wheels Up at this time, or we're going to get on the bus at this time, or hey, just as a reminder, the drive tonight is such and such a time. Just make sure that they're all ready to go, and then get along with Larry. And when it's time to scoot out of the building, we all move, and then that's what I do.
Right on. Well, since we're talking about what happens after we're done, that's all you, my friend. Go 5-1. You mean
when the show is done?
Yeah.
Ugh.
He just said,
well, when Loadout is going on, just making sure along with Larry that, we do have a route that's cleared for us to get to the buses or to the SUVs. And just, the other stuff that I just went over, just making sure that, if we're returning to the hotel, if there is hotel security, Larry would usually advance that, hey, we're 10 minutes out, 5 minutes out, if we're going to come in through a back entrance into the hotel. But once the show loads out or goes down, I'm not going to say I'm done. Once we get back to the hotel or to the flight, it's still, you're still on the clock. But once you get back to the hotel or to the plane, then and the artist closes their eyes, then I get to close my eyes.
All right. Once the show comes down, hey, Kit, can you talk to us? We already shared your
loadout sheet.
Yeah, we shared your loadout sheet, but run through that loadout and how you're prepping for it for us a little bit. We know you've sent that sheet out and everybody knows where they're meant to go.
Yeah, so everybody knows where they're meant to go. The stagehands have been broken out. I like to do colored wristbands on larger shows. When you get above 20, 30, 40 stagehands, sometimes stagehands will get lost when they get sent to go do a project. And having the color coded wristbands help you know, oh, these are lighting guys, audio guys, pushers, and it keeps the lighting guys from stealing the audio guys' stagehands. Like, that's one thing. Like, if a guy has a cable to pull, he's going to reach for the closest stagehands that are there. So if he looks over and he doesn't know, hey, there's just a load of stagehands right there. He doesn't know if they're waiting for a speaker or whatever it is, if they don't have anything that says, oh, we're the audio stagehand. So he would try to use those. So they have been delineated into their groups. Generally around the last song, the stage manager gives one person in each department that group of stagehands to go and take care of whatever those projects are that they're going to be doing. Everyone knows what everyone on your team knows the order of the loadout by this point. They've been able to look over that loadout sheet, or been informed of it by their crew chief. And I'm at that point looking for any holes that need to be filled. If the backline techs are on stage and all of a sudden it seems like there's too many cases coming into their area, I have to ask people to hold up, take it a little slower so that we can pack up the band gear, get that off the stage so that then they can start taking away the monitor system or the floor lights or whatever it is. And if that's good, then I'm working with Mariah to make sure that the chair carts are coming in as they're supposed to. But everyone by this point is chomping at the bit to get out. It's working with as a production manager, you're working with their stage manager to make sure it goes out in an organized, expedient fashion so that everyone stays safe and your gear doesn't get messed up when it's going out the door.
Thank you. And Mariah, where are you after the show goes down?
Hopefully I am done settling, because usually settlement happens during the show if you're lucky, especially if you have an accountant or tour manager that has to flee with the band right after the show. It could be, if you have done your prep throughout the day, you can really sit down, and it could be as quick as 1 second matching a number, or it could be as long as hours and hours and you don't even get done that night. But hopefully I'm done settling. And I like to be in the bowl by the downstage edge, making sure those chair cards come in, and kind of like how I start the day, to make sure everyone's day starts off easy. They have the people they need, the tools they need, the resources they need. At the end of the day, I want to make sure it and the stage manager and all the crew, a big part is clearing that floor at the end of the night. And if there's a holdup with chair carts being not cleared, though there's probably been meetings about it before it ever even happened and what the plan is, it could still hold up and really put a sour taste in people's mouths about Loadout.
She get jammed up.
The middle of the way of Loadout to be why it couldn't happen. And it seems like such a mild thing, but man, it could piss people off. And then once I know Loadout is going smoothly, I go back to my room and I pack up my case and get ready for the next day, because I need my case to get on one of those trucks as well.
Larry, where are you after the show?
End of show, I break it down to 3 phases. So phase 1, if you're just the tour security, obviously I've gotten with 5-1 to make sure if they're doing a runner, vehicles are in place, we're ready to go. So when the show ends, down the ramp, steps, whatever, into the vehicles, out they go. Phase 2, if you are the tour security slash personal security, so you're doing both jobs. So again, getting the cars ready, packing your stuff, having your stuff in the vehicle already, ready to go. So when they come off, we're into the vehicles together and out we go. Phase 3 would be if you're the tour security and the artist is going to hang after the show. So get them back to the dressing room, have already looked at alternative routes that we can maybe possibly go out later so we don't interfere with loadout if possible, or if we have to move a bus or car to another area because of the crowd issues. We could have an area where, the crowd is mobbed and they're waiting for autographs, or, a place like that. Say, for instance, like the garden would be a good plan to use, because they have that freight elevator behind. You could take it downstairs and go out the back way, so you're not interfering with loadout. So all those things, what took place first thing in the morning. So we already have that probability in case something weird happens.
All right. And where are we?
And then we get on the bus and go.
And
do
then
it again.
Yeah, have a beer and do it all again.
we have a beer and do it all again.
Or as Adrian said, Groundhog Day.
Groundhog Day. This is how you strive for the perfect Groundhog Day. And it's easy you just want it to be so clickety click, because ultimately those trucks could get stuck in that snowstorm coming down into Denver, and you might not see those trucks until 1 o'clock in the afternoon. But if your crew is humming and they have been hitting that Groundhog Day mark for a few weeks in a row, and something goes down like that, you're still going to have a show. It's still going to be on time, because that crew because they've achieved Groundhog Day a few times, they can nail it when it doesn't go right, because they nail it and they're humming. I've seen it happen, right, Jim Runge? Remember we had to have trucks towed out of the snow? Didn't see the first trucks till 1 o'clock. It's a problem, but doors were on slightly late and we had a perfect rock show.
And if you ever wondered why your roadie friends don't want to grab a beer with you after their 17, 18, 20-hour day, hopefully the last 2 hours will have helped go some way to understanding, because they've been performing mental and physical gymnastics for most of that day.
Thank you to everyone who came and joined us. Thank you for sticking out the extended day of show version. Have a fantastic, fantastic holiday. Thank you. We are all very grateful for all of you who come and join us. We're happy to see those of you who joined us today. To our safety contingency out there, the MPB family is in the house. We love you. Thank you very much. To all of you who come and join us every week, we love y'all too. Thank you very much. Have a very, very safe and productive and happy week, and we will see you guys next week.
Thank you, guys.
Just to add one last note, episode number 59 next week is Settlement 2.0. So we have made it through day of show, and we'll be getting to settlement, and we'll be getting even closer to episode.
Stuart Ross is joining us for settlement. It's going to be fun. It's going to be a beast. If you're a geek about numbers,
really looking forward to this. He's doing a PowerPoint presentation for us. So.
Yeah, settlement with Stuart Ross is going to be something.
This is the nerd series. 2.0 is the nerd series.
This, by the way, he asked to be this webinar. So
amazing.
Great.
All right, big love, everyone.
Thank you, everybody.
Everyone have a great week.